QRM Office 5521, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Today is 29 September 2021. We take a look at the business channel. They talk a lot of things, but we will shut down the television and have our conversation today. In the first part of the morning, we could expose a fail, which is I have the I would say optimization of my submask at my personal network, which is a service offered by a provider, and I do a payment to receive this. This company looks like it's having a lot of problems. It's a fusion between a Mexican company and a Brazilian company. Both have one or the two most corrupted system of justice and public system around the globe. Of course, that this is a problem. In Brazil, we had a case named Green Wall in the very beginning of one specific government, considering the Ministry of Justice and frauds at the communication service and violation of civil rights, and parallel investigation doing the violation of 40,000 people at least in a very specific area, which got compared with other observed incremental and the systematical behavior as fraud and fraud management inside the public department as premise or judicial protection to have the continuity as clandestine and illicit gains associated by silence on public institution, organized crime in a transcontinental way, transnational organized crime associated, organized or protected by public department, since from the very beginning during the intercourse as criminal procedure or even as the result, which is the illicit scam. It's the law 12,850, article 1 and 2. Then, and 3, we will check that this case Greenwald combined with others which has this incremental behavior as the continuity and the structural design of failures inside the institution, interconnected by communication flow, and but get as failure in general we are having instruments of control used to commit crimes. Of course, this is not a good idea. This sets the idea as cretinism, the cretinism observed in Brazilian public budget at least 2012 2021. All players involved, macro institution, micro institution, and specific individualized variables as peer with combination and relational association by integrated causality as complementarity forming the clusterization, which allows you sometimes to commit the crime as overpriced contract from public department as a public contract, transference of the money for a peer that will be as a pool redistributing this and have parallel storage of real money, pulverized and incremental. You will try to boost the redistribution of credit, and in the same way we can observe that sometimes you do illicit search about some issues or items sent by other areas, considering for instance the corporate peer on Colombia or on Spain that has this expectation as flow or interflow. As drug, for instance, you do the seizure and have the redistribution by public corruption according with associated peers. And this, one more time, is the idea of transnational organized crime. In our case, we are having communication. We are having clandestine levels of communication, organized, violating basic rights, guarantees, the right which has no condition as to think and have the intellectual development of something as a research, as a model, as an econometrical model, as a white label project. All these violated, evidenced, proven a dozen times, and which allows to have the causal compensation, which is origination as a legal right, which presented as a financial factory as operation with a negotiable instrument having this expectation as compensation transferred on it. We will check that on our security law, which indeed is part of the federal justice specialized as military justice, but sometimes they are part of this integrated FAILA 742381. They won't act, and indeed they do not act, didn't act until this time. Then we'll check that the law 1802 year 53, if it's valid or not, I have no idea, but because we will observe that this will happen. We will offer judicial protection, we will offer lobby at the Congress to change the law, have the creation of a new law to protect the criminal, the crimes committed or the criminal result. The Article 3, it's about, kind of the turbulence or the instability against the public, the order. For instance, if you have the stimulus to everybody got a gun inside, a machine gun inside the house, and you set a lot of situations that will probably bring a civil war, or the preparation to have so much instability at the system that you consider a new constitution by the offender of the current constitution. It's a nonsense, but it's part of the criticism proceedings. And the Article 5 is this idea at this law. We take a look, please, at the law 7170, year 83, Article 20, which is about the observation of what we had, which is the complete steal of the public treasury by a thievery corporation organized from public department, combined with international level as transnational organized crime by localization of criminal behavior associated and interconnected areas like the budget. You can consider, for instance, the public budget as an interface that you will put your national officers there because they are associated with the criminal by the silence, by the nepotism, by everybody they did against this research, considering the silence until this time. So we will have the comparative measurement because in general, budget is an interface. It's a flow and workflow. It's debit and credit. And you get all outlines from here. We will check, for instance, when you do the systematic violation against one specific sports entity, committing violation at the private chat, I would say, or breaking all secrets as financial records of this sports entity and doing interference at the electoral choice of the fans, you violated the Constitution in the same way as a guarantee of this entity that can claim this and present it all offenders, or if the offender is the cause and they will receive the complaint, of course that will maybe try the Interpol at the sports corruption, and you present your reasons for them, and you will consider request the support of the Big Four audit, for instance, or things that maybe we are having. We observe that if we have the operation as transference of an athlete for the Euro, considering a fraud scam, it's white collar crime law in Brazil. It's a corruption at sport, it's an international crime. Financial crime is crime all around. And the tax evasion the same way. We will check that if we observe that was founded a clandestine bank by the local department of police, which has a historic associated with the local prosecutor and the local system of justice at violation of guarantees at this sports age, you will observe that this case fade away suddenly. And then you consider have the research of this money maybe on north, east of Brazil or something like this. Or you can have the situation which is null the operation, request this information on Europe by the European Central Bank and the Deutsche Bank by the chair number 1 present time that require this kind of thing, which is the transparency. and he will offer, or the bank or the German institution will offer the asset as data to understand the coalition as a scheme that goes since from the 90s up to this time, destroy a lot of areas by corrosive failure integrated as channel or physiological lines inside the regular system. And we observe that indeed the noise inside the clandestine organization or system will affect only the clandestine variables. It means that I have my system, it's regular, but I have the clandestine situation inside. It means that I have my system positive 1 and I have my system negative 1. And this system negative 1 indeed is kind of very close to the 0, S system. If I consider this integration, which is the crime committed inside an institution, is a crime as itself. But the noise inside the clandestine system is a relational aspect that will affect only the clandestine variables, as the law enforcement inside the public corruption, the international law enforcement inside the local public corruption, to protect the constitution and have the stability. For instance, at the case Greenwald, which was silenced by the nepotism and the thanksgiving favor that you are, having the accomplishment despite its outlaw. And will affect only the clandestine variables that got in touch with the corrupted players inside the legal system that is equal to the criminals. It means that we have here the value -1. When we put this at this situation, we offer this chart at the surface here. You consider this research a big fund. We pay until this time. And then you insist in trusting your corruption scam. Local Authority Brazil 5521. And then we are offering you now as the international law enforcement or the players at the corruption scam that got in touch with the corrupted variables at the regular fields as top down, and they will give you. And then we have that model, which is I have the situation 1, which can be positive 1, which can be negative 1. The positive 1 is the outline I will not consider, so I will have only this situation here as my first cluster of information. This guy can offer the criminals as real criminals. And I have in the same way my situation 0, which is the criminal organization, but sometimes I have, that switched value inside the international system as corruption. And things, especially observed on FIFA and sports and interconnected levels associated at the COVID-19 with extended field at the vaccine and research, projecting your gain and considering the cycles as need vaccine to keep this as a perpetuity. But you are a criminal, You have that cretinism as the archetype that will set this mental model, and we will trace this by this kind of mentality. Then they can offer the corrupted player positive 1 interval negative 1, or the real criminals. As you can observe, they are in touch with a lot of things, and we will have that idea, which indeed your behavior as positive 1 or 00, which is the organization of the global center. When you had the -1 as a corrupted value and got associated with your real criminal as positive value, this kind of thing, such negative, the cross-set give me as a systemic organization the positive, which is the expectation of information from this kind of model offered for control, and it's against the transnational organized pattern of criminality. Have a nice week, and then we will move with our econometrical model next month.